Welcome back to Hoeffelhohman FC. This is episode 5. We are still journeying through Bringing the Noise. Today we're going to cover chapter 9, and I am welcomed again by my co-host, Nick Hohman.
Hey, I'm here. I'm back. I'm enjoying this book a lot.
It's becoming a part of life, and I like that.
Yeah. It's almost a daily routine reading this thing, especially this chapter and the next one.
How goes coaching?
It's good, man. Coaching, we're only doing preseason training, so it's twice a week for me, once a week for them because I coach 2 teams. But yeah, it's this week was good. Just sometimes, ironically, it's relates to what this chapter is called, and it's called Starts and Stops, and coaching this week was very much a lot of that. It's like, I guess it's like another phrase of saying it was up and down. But yeah, it's good. It's just, I'm glad we're taking the time to get them reeled in and getting everybody together once a week just to get the chemistry going and getting to know the parents, giving the new players a chance to get comfortable. And yeah, it's been good. I think there's good quality. I'm excited. We've already got some tournaments lined up. We're just waiting for our schedule to come out for our league. And yeah, I'm pumped. I mean, you won't be able to tell from my monotone voice, but I am pumped. I am excited. The U9 girls team we have is pretty good. I'm excited for them too. They're learning so much so fast already. It's kind of nuts. You can really see or start to pick out the players that are really gonna play for a while, probably. Maybe that's kind of premature, but it's just.
Do you have any kids that remind you of Jürgen Klopp?
Oh man.
Not yet. Maybe.
Well, I don't. It's.
Does the earth still produce people like that?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Maybe a few of them could remind me of him, but I feel like Jürgen was a bit easygoing at his age, and then his competitiveness really started to burst when he got into his teenage years, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. That's always the kids change so much over a short amount of time. It's crazy to watch at least 24 kids grow up every week when you see them and when you coach them. It's pretty special, man. When I first started coaching these kids, this age, last year, I was thinking I wasn't ready for it because I hadn't had any experience with kids this age, and babies and kids this young made me nervous already. So it's just I don't know. Something about it, the way that the club leadership just, they were hey, we have an A team for you to coach. And I'm just they asked me if I wanted to coach them, and I'm just yep, definitely, without really thinking about it too much. And then, man, those first 2 months though were freaking humbling, dude. I was just also very blessed with the group of parents that I had. They were very patient and just they bless them, man. Bless them. They're a good group. Just so supportive and just trying to be as patient as they can with their busy schedules. Like, not that I was like fucking up all the time. It was just kind of like they were learning and I was learning, and like we had to learn a lot together, which was really cool. I think that's why it made it so special for me. But yeah, and I don't know. Some of them already knew who Jürgen Klopp was from being Liverpool fans, thanks to their fathers. But yeah, they know who he is, and it'll be interesting to see how things change since he's not there anymore. I saw that they had a pretty good preseason game though. I forget who it was against. Real somebody.
I think it was Real Sociedad, perhaps. No, Real Betis.
Yeah.
They won 1-0. I didn't watch anything.
Well, just a lot of the review pundits were pretty positive about it. So I was like, okay, that's cool. They're in a good spot, maybe.
Yeah. Arsenal beat Man United, technically. But then they still have a shootout, which United won the shootout. Gabriel Jesus scored, so he'll probably have a good preseason and then do nothing. He tricked me last year. I watched a lot of the preseason. I was like, maybe this is his time to be number 9. And then they're like, we need a number 9. We don't have one. And they still kind of don't.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It's back to the same Arsene Wenger problem with their Van Persie. They're like, you need to buy number 9. He's like, we're fine. Theo Walcott will do it. I'll just create Thierry Henry again.
Yeah.
Like, that's an easy thing to do.
Yeah. Well, he did seem to feel good about that decision, but I guess he learned.
But in other Premier League stuff, I have a Chelsea question for you. Because I noticed that I think they're at about like 160 million spent in the summer already.
Yeah, I stopped keeping track. Anytime I see them spend more money, I'm just like, man.
But like, where are the players that are leaving? This is like the third summer in a row. Like 8 players are just getting brought in. Like, how does it? I don't understand how it works. I'm not even trying to make fun of them at this point. I'm just like,
how does the system work?
How does it work? How does financial play work? I have no idea. The money just keeps getting spent. They say they're getting like a penalty, but they literally just bought like 8 more players. When Graham Potter was in, 8 more players. Then Graham Potter was out and Pochettino's in, and even mid-season they're bringing in players for him. And
so the owner might be just doing out of pocket. I don't know, man. Like, at this point, like, they could be just, I feel like either from their sponsors or from the owners or wherever, they come up with those decisions probably and just like, yeah, it didn't work out. Yeah. We're going to get a handful of new ones, just see how it goes. Because maybe they just have that much money to throw around. I don't know.
It's just wild after the seasons that they have to then buy a $36 million central midfielder in Dewsbury Hall from Leicester City. That was like the bulk of the buys was like 5 central midfielders. Like, that's a spot you guys have players. And then all of a sudden you're buying a $23 million 17-year-old from Aston Villa. I'm sorry, 18 years old. And then there's a $35 million 17-year-old from Brazil. On top of all this other people who play wingers and central midfielders. I get like buying the young players to like turn a profit like feeder teams, but like they're buying them at like the price that you get like, that guy's gonna play, right?
Right.
Well, maybe not. What? How does this work? I don't understand.
What do you guys want to do?
It's just been baffling tracking it, but
yeah. Like I said, every time I see them spend more money on a new player, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on anyway.
Must be nice.
Yeah. It must be nice, but until it doesn't work out.
To go from a Russian oligarch and then kicking that guy out, and then still just having piles of money.
I mean, the new owner is American, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's one or the other. American businessman or Russian oligarch.
But I mean, it's not a problem to have money. But if there's a plan...
No, you just need to spend it.
There's Chelsea players that I like,
way.
and it irks me because I thought they were actually... I thought Graham Potter was in the right direction. No, I get it. The results, blah, blah, blah.
A few of them felt like the right direction.
But if you're going to give all these players 8-year contracts, like, okay, here's the young squad, and then 4 years down the line they'll mature and it'll be like really good, like Faith. No, he's gone. Pochettino comes in, right, the hitting stride at the end of the season. Cole Palmer, boom. Well, we're gonna what? We got have like a 30-year-old coach now.
I don't know. I mean.
It's nice because I'm a Liverpool fan because they're a giant, but it also as a neutral, I'm like,
yeah,
I want better.
It would be nice to have better.
Can I spend the money?
I mean, that's why I'm so bitter about like Thomas Tuchel even leaving.
Right.
When was that? Like a year and a half ago.
Champions League winner. Oh man, you bought Lukaku. We don't like that. You're gone.
Like it. Just from what everybody was saying when it happened, like.
I think the owner's son plays FIFA Ultimate Team. And he tells us, I scored a goal with this player yesterday.
It all makes sense.
35 million, you'll be fine.
But like you can't just, with soccer, with football, you have, like, it's a long game. Like
no, you guys' coach is 44. I think I'm thinking of the new Brighton coach that's like 31.
Yeah, the new Brighton coach is younger.
Enzo Maresca. He coached Leicester and got them into the Premier League. Coached for Parma and Manchester City's academy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad pick.
I think I want Pochettino back.
I feel like it's not a bad pick, but like just getting rid of the managers as quickly and rotatively as they have been, it's just like, can we just pick somebody and just have them there for a little bit? Just develop, just let things build for a little bit, because in soccer, like, that's important. That's why, like, Tuchel bought the players that he did at the end of the season, and then they got rid of him. It was all very confusing. Everybody was like, I mean, sure, some people wanted him out, but
it's a deep squad.
Yeah, it's I don't know. We'll see. There's probably a lot we don't know either, so I'm always trying to think of that.
I'm just an ignorant soccer fan, so.
Well, it's important to ask questions. It's just like, what's going on?
But I just felt like I wanted to bring that up, talk about some soccer news. The Olympics going on.
Yeah.
The USA lost to France and then beat New Zealand, and hopefully we'll beat whoever the other 4 teams in there. And go through.
The women's team, right?
No, I'm talking about the U.S. men.
Oh.
I haven't paid attention to the women. I'm sure they're fine. They always seem fine.
Yeah, they... their first game was against... they're in a group with Germany, Zambia, and Australia. I think they might have tied or lost to Australia their first game. They beat Zambia. And then they beat Germany in a surprisingly gap of points to 4-1 score.
Yeah. Yep. Beat Zambia. Beat Germany.
So they seem pretty hot. So it's just, And
then, they play Australia for the last group.
Oh, okay. So they haven't played them yet.
But yeah, they're sitting at 6 points. I'm sure they're through with that result, maybe.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure them and Germany will get out.
No, because Australia could beat USA. No, they got 6 points goal difference. They should be fine. Even if they lose, they would have to get destroyed.
Yeah, they pretty much solidified it today.
They'd have to get destroyed. They might already be through. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was paying attention mainly to the U.S. men's because of France, because I like Thierry Henry and I'm rooting for him to coach France.
Is he going to?
No, he is. He's coaching the U23. He's coaching the French team.
No way.
That smoked us 3-0 or 3-1 or whatever it was.
Dude, wow, that's cool. Good for him.
But we just happened to be in the group with them. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll root for them after the group then, I guess. I'm not technically allowed to right now. Be anti-American.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's not too much stuff going on in soccer right now.
Yeah, not anymore.
The Olympics is whatever. Olympics is cool for everything else other than soccer. But for soccer, it's not the most.
I mean, it makes sense because like we had just the Euros and the Copa, so it's like, yeah. I'd say if we didn't have those tournaments, the tournament in the Olympics would be pretty good.
It's possible that David De Gea is going to come back and play in Serie A for Genoa.
Oh, wow.
Raphael Varane left United and joined a newly promoted Italian Serie A side, Cuomo. There's no U. It's just Como. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And then other than that, it's pretty dull in the news. You already mentioned the USA one.
I saw that the French club Bordeaux has declared bankruptcy and they're being liquefied.
Jeez.
Which was kind of crazy to hear. I guess they didn't have two celebrity billionaires to buy the club and rebuild it a little bit like Wrexham.
Ederson might be leaving City. It's up in the air.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, he's been there a while.
It's been there, but he's not.
Who would they have replace him?
That's the thing. I'm sure the backup isn't the answer, but they don't have like that world beater number one lined up. I don't think. If I'm then, I go out and buy Ramsdale right away.
Yeah, because he's leaving, right?
Yeah, I don't know where he's going, but that guy's got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Ramsdale he's still pretty young. I feel like Pep would love to coach him.
I know maybe he doesn't go to City because Ramsdale lost out because he wasn't as good as his feet, which is the whole Pep Guardiola system.
Ramsdale wasn't?
Yeah. That's why they went with the other guy.
Interesting.
Even though he was having the clean sheets, there was just playing out of the back with David Raya was better than Ramsdale. Ramsdale's 26. He's got 10 more years.
Oh.
Your goalie. Like, you can...
I didn't think he was that old. Okay, well, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's young for goalkeeping age.
Yeah. I was thinking he was 23 or 21. But, I don't know. I feel like Pep could give him a pep talk.
And Ederson's 30, so the way he plays, he could play 8 more years too. Like,
yeah, he could easily go to the Italian league.
I think he's linked with like the Saudi money and stuff like that.
No, go there, play with Ronaldo.
Yeah. But I'm still waiting to see if Man United gets rid of everybody because that's what I think they have to do.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see who they pick for Ederson's spot.
But United, Raphael Varane's one, but they need to get rid of, in my opinion, everybody else. You got, is Luke Shaw the answer? Is Wan-Bissaka the answer? Is Lindelof the answer?
See, they're all good players.
But not right now. Christian Eriksen looks great at Denmark, and then it's like, all right, he's kind of plays in a deep lying role for United. Casemiro's not the future answer. Mason Mount's played like 5 games for them. Scott McTominay is not the answer.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
Kobe Mano, you didn't buy him, but he will be playing. Rashford, Sancho, hot and cold. Anthony did nothing. Now you got Joshua Zirkzee, which is an exciting talent from Bologna.
Yeah.
Well, he's Netherlands, but he played for Bologna. And then, you still is Højlund going to pick it up. I mean, he had a pretty good year. He had about like a first year of like a Darwin Núñez kind of stats. I think it's there to not in the assist area, but he scored 16 goals, which was similar to Darwin Núñez's first season. But he had like 16 goals with 12 assists instead of just 2 assists.
I don't know. Part of me trusts what Ten Hag wants to do because he did a phenomenal job at Ajax. But, I think he's also just learning, much like Jürgen Klopp learned how England was with Liverpool.
Ten Hag needs to be at Chelsea where you can just boom, boom, buy, sell. It seems to be too much of, I don't know what's going on with their system of.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's weird. Like, you would think if that works, other clubs would just be boom, 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 boom.
I guess. Well, United and Chelsea are very two different clubs, so.
Right.
Different standards.
In this chapter, you get to a behind-the-scenes look at how some clubs function.
Yeah.
And some
are
dark. So let's hop into that For
sure. Chapter 9, starts and stops.
Yeah, starts and stops, and I'm going to start right in the beginning. Word of the 15-year-old village Wunder Kid swept through the region like the cool Black Forest mountain wind. Gracious under pressure, always ahead of the game by about 2 seconds. Blessed with silky feet, he was evidently special. And Jürgen was his name. Jürgen Haug? I know, well, that's like more of a nickname, right? The teenage prodigy played in Ulrich Rath's SV Glatten youth team with Hartmut, Hardy, Rath, and Jürgen Klopp. And he was so good that Tus Ergensingen, go ahead and correct me.
Ergensingen.
Yeah. The area's most renowned club for budding footballers agreed to take him on. But Haug's parents were reluctant to drive the 60-kilometer round trip to take their son to training and games in the suburb of Rothenburg. Walter Bohr, the much-respected Ergensingen coach, had to think on his feet. He extended his offer to Klopp on the understanding that his mother, Elizabeth, would give Haug a lift 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So he is the talk of the town. Kind of like if somebody was going crazy in Lancaster here, we would probably hear about it. It's a growing town, but not the largest place in the world.
Yeah. I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had Zarek Valentine. You know that guy?
No.
He played overseas. He wasn't like playing at the top flight, but he was playing overseas, and then he had a pretty long career in the MLS. Hopped around a couple teams, but like Portland Timbers and the Montreal Impact.
Oh.
Yeah. Bannon Township, man.
Yeah. I didn't really know about that, honestly. I'll have to brush up on that when I get out of here.
The Ergensingen,
yeah.
The Ergensingen coach wanted his players to spend as much time with the ball as possible, rather than clock up hours on endurance runs around the pitch.
Love that.
He had traveled to Brazil, met Pele there, and been inspired by futsal, a five-a-side version of the game that forced players to hone their skills and creativity. We had to juggle the ball for 30 minutes before every training session, Klopp recalled. After 6 months, we could have starred as performing skulls at Christmas parties. Performing seals at Christmas parties. That's pretty pivotal. The fact that wasn't like a normal thing happening kind of speaks to the time as well.
Yeah, for sure. Just with like, I don't know, comfortability with the ball, but like not fortifying, just kind of like enhancing that skill was kind of new. I mean, that's kind of what Johan Cruyff really built in Barcelona, was like just knowing how to do everything with the ball. Like not, make the ball do the work, total football, all that stuff. And here in this little place, Ergensingen, like just the fact that this coach is kind of doing that, and like installing that mentality is pretty cool. But it's not really like, yeah. When I think of Jürgen Klopp, I don't think of like tiki-taka.
Right.
So it's interesting.
And on a smaller scale, when I was trying to get better, I had a leader in my youth group who was big into soccer, and what he was telling me, just as like a bare minimum, well, it's about your first touch.
Mm-hmm.
How good's your first touch? And if you're trying to improve your first touch, can you even juggle it 100 times? I was like, well, I can't. So like, I worked on getting it to keeping the ball up for 100 times. And I'm not saying that this led me to any like great successes, but it increased my first touch. So I wasn't like completely... You're not like nervous on the pitch as much. You're like, okay, this ball's flying at me. I don't bring it down
just perfectly
every single time, but it's not like something I'm not accustomed to trying to do. You're not scared of it. You're not... You want to... You have an idea. Your body has a response instead of it flying at you, and you go like, oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And it does improve your game.
Yeah, practice is just preparation.
Mm-hmm. But you want the ball to be able to come off your body in a natural way. And if you're doing it for 30 minutes every practice, I know you're doing it more than 100, which is why he's saying they could have performed.
Mm-hmm.
I know I did like a camp when I was really young, and they want you to do like the around the world kind of. Theirs was whether, I don't think it mattered which side, but like right foot to right thigh to head.
Oh, wow.
To chest. Or no, yeah. Right foot to thigh, then a chest, and then hit it up to your head, and then back down your body, your left side.
That's asking a lot.
Yeah, I didn't do that. That's when just
you don't really
insecurities and like, I don't want to go back to that. I'm not good enough, and blah blah blah, and all those things that are not good. When it's just like, no, if you just keep practicing.
Yeah, if you do it every day.
But it's when you're living in fear instead of like, I love to do this.
Fear is the mind killer.
Yes, exactly. Now I'm going to move on to 121 at the top, unless you had some notes to touch on.
No, I don't have any.
Klopp admired Bauer so much. Am I saying that right? Do you know? Baur.
I would go with Bauer.
Bauer.
Yeah.
Klopp admired Bauer so much that he threatened the club he would leave if the coach wasn't allowed to take over the first team, where he would be playing in the 1986-87 season. Jürgen Zingen relented. In one of his first games with the seniors, the 19-year-old Klopp came up against Bundesliga club Eintracht Frankfurt, who had decamped to the Black Forest for their preseason training. Can you say that for me?
Yeah, in quotations. Die launische Diva, the temperamental diva,
as they were colloquially called, weren't in a forgiving mood. Dietrich Weiss's side hammered their host despite missing 7 regular and not trying too hard. It was a 9-1 humiliating score line. This was reminding me, I wanted to say it earlier, but I knew we would get to it. Like, did I not care enough when I was coaching? In the sense, like, this is a regular occurrence for Klopp to just, like, if I didn't like something, should I be running to, like, at Langsterley, for example? I'm bothered by something. I'm going to walk into the board meeting and just go, I'm going to quit right now if I don't get this. I'm going to quit right now if this guy's not the coach.
So
it's just great. He's always doing that, and I know he saw that. There's so many examples of Wolfgang Franco, and like, if I don't get this right now, like, just go into the people in charge and just go like, I need this.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not me, but like, maybe I need to care just a tiny bit more.
I mean, there's some days where I like it would depend on the organization.
Mm-hmm. True.
Like, Klopp was always a part of like a slightly bigger organizations in soccer in Germany where they got better funding and people cared a little bit more about the sport and about the culture. So he knew how much I think he understood his position in each of those places, so he felt like he could do that and they would listen. I feel like if you or I would do that at this club that we used to coach together at, it's just they'd be like, okay, bye.
Right.
We're not really super needed, but at the same time, we also I feel like if we went in there, we're like, hey, we noticed this, and this. What do you think? This is kind of important to us. Unlike Jürgen Klopp, he kind of just stormed in and was like, what the fuck?
I guess what I'm feeling inside is if something's worth it, and if you have a spirit of non-confrontation, people will not really give in to demands. But when you go in there as an immovable object or an unstoppable force, not saying you have to be overly demanding and difficult to deal with, but if you go in there and let your passion be behind the why of when you want something, and be willing to even go do the confrontation, maybe you don't get your way, but even
you're still acting on it.
At least acting on it. And if you want those things to succeed, if you're not already having a relationship with people above you, it won't go over well if it's the first time you've showed up to something. But you got to play the game a little bit and make those relationships, and then maybe you can explode on somebody. So Klopp is starting to get on the route of becoming a professional footballer. And he gets the better of somebody, so they claim, that played in the 1986 World Cup loss to Argentina 3-2 when Diego Maradona beat West Germany, which I felt was pretty crazy to even be playing against players on that. The guy's name was Bertold. He can still vividly remember the training camp in the Black Forest and how he had gone back into full training with barely a break after the final against Diego Maradona's Argentina at the Azteca Stadium. But the former AS Roma and Bayern Munich defender admits he had no recollection of the game versus Ergenzigen itself, let alone Klopp as an opponent. He finds the suggestion that he was outrun by a lanky amateur incongruous, verging on offensive. He did what? He dashed past me? Never. He laughs. I ran 100 meters in less than 11 seconds at the time. Maybe I let him go to gift him their consolation goal that day of their 9-1 thrashing. Which is not out of the question, especially if you've just played in a World Cup final and lost. It's pre-season. Your full team's not there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're defending against those Argentinians, I imagine your pace is probably up to snuff. Because it's not... I mean, they lost 3-2, but that means you're playing with them.
Yeah.
The game was definitely open. I've played games where maybe not the full effort is there if it's a 9-1 thrashing. Kind of turn off a little bit.
I don't know. Plus, maybe he didn't really know who he was even as a person. So I don't know. Imagine how many players he's played against.
Sure.
You're asking him to remember one person who was not even well known at that point.
But I highlighted that just because those are the kinds of people you want to play against.
Yeah.
And even if they're trying or not, those are the kinds of guys that you want to beat if you're trying to make it to be a professional footballer. What is certain is that Weiss approached Klopp about the move to Frankfurt after the game. I was so excited that I broke my Spezi glass, Klopp said. A Spezi is a mixture of Coke and Fanta, the non-alcoholic cocktail of choice in the mid-1980s in West Germany. Did not know that. It's just so random. Just two sodas mixed together.
It's a thing.
Nevertheless, he had... Well, I mean, When I was a kid, I would like throw them all together, just at like the.
Well, yeah, you go to McDonald's and you just get a little bit of everything. It tastes like Smarties.
Right. Nevertheless, he had to politely turn down the offer. Jürgen told me that he had to finish his Abitur A-levels first. Weiss82 says, "We agreed that we would speak again in a year's time. Weiss's friend Walter Bauer promised to send regular updates about the forward's progress. So you're even getting calls about your play. So it's like you're on. This is not a stop yet. We're starting. We're getting the ball rolling. We're dribbling past World Cup finalists.
Getting attention.
Frankfurt's interested. Even you stood out among the garbage in a 9-1 loss or win on their perspective. Frankfurt, almost 3 hours away by car from Glatten, was not a viable destination as long as Klopp was still in school. But Oberliga, 4th Division club, FC, I'm going to let you say that one.
FC Pforzheim.
Pforzheim.
Yeah, you spell that Pforzheim.
They were a different proposition, situated in a 120,000 inhabitant town 70 minutes to the north of the Black Forest. The side coached by Bernd Hoffmann, a former Bundesliga 2 striker. So you got to start making some consolations on where you're going to play and who's interested in you, especially if you're, he's going to school while trying to be a professional footballer.
Yeah.
Which is not the route you typically have to go nowadays. If you're getting the kind of attention I think Klopp is getting nowadays, I think especially in Europe, the systems are in place that you're going to be taken. You're going to be more taken. You're going to be more taken care of, and you don't have to have this big balance of life to football.
There's a documentary on a German media website about how Schalke's academy works, and if you get into the players that get into the academy or the teams there, their first priority is football or soccer, and they also provide education, but it's not going to be at the schools. So it's more of like private teaching. Really good documentary. It definitely shows like the kinds of systems that are in place for players that make it to a level like that.
So now Jürgen Klopp is on the move. Pforzheim and Ergensingen officials met at a service station halfway, where 6,000 euros, or whatever the money in Germany at the time was.
At that time, Deutsche Marks, yeah.
Okay. In cash was handed over. That's just straight up cash in exchange for Klopp's signature. Here you go. He spent 6 months driving there and back for games and training in his sister Stephanie's yellow Golf. Between 3,000 and 5,000 people turned up at the Stadion im Brutzinger.
Yeah.
Brutzingertal for the games. Klopp was largely a spectator too. He featured only 4 times and drew blanks in front of goal. Oh, we are coming to a standstill. He couldn't make the transition to Oberliga, Hoffmann says. He was frustrated, as you can imagine, but he respected that there were people in the team that were tough to displace. His attitude in training, apart from the odd, quick outburst, was always spot on. Pforzheim was a dead end, but Eintracht Frankfurt hadn't forgotten about him.
Yeah, he's this is the part, just like as he is getting used to the education and playing like commute and like the things in between, and just kind of how life was going for him. I mean, it's just a lot. It's just, how far does he travel? I think he has to travel quite a bit to get to, or maybe he doesn't.
No, it had said it.
Because he's going to school in Frankfurt, I think, at this point.
Right. I know it was at least like a 40-kilometer kind of thing. Like it wasn't crazy, but commuting back and forth over and over again for 6 months isn't the most prime thing that you want to do.
Oh, wait. So on this page 123, yeah, I'll just read it. So it says, so Jürgen was in Athens on holiday or something. Yeah. And a tiny fisherman's boat took him to a post station because he said somebody told him he had a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And over the phone, his mother Elizabeth said, "Good of you to call. You have to go to Frankfurt for a trial." And Jürgen thought about it for a couple of days and then took a train himself from Athens, a 48-hour ride to Stuttgart. His dad, Norbert Klopp, Isolreich, adds, agreed for Klopp to move to Frankfurt only if they arranged a place at the Goethe University in Frankfurt for him to study sports science. So there you go.
Yeah, they're trying to solve the problem so he can do his schoolwork and go after football and not be so divided.
Yeah, which made a whole lot of sense. I mean, I'm glad that I get the study and playing commute thing. It's if you are driving, there's not a whole lot of time for anything else if you have to commute a long way to go play or to go study and then come all the way back. It's tough, man.
Yeah, we're at another start stop. Now we're at Frankfurt, but Klopp's mentor Weiss had been relieved of his duties 6 months earlier. Karl-Heinz Feldkamp, an altogether more old-fashioned coach, had no use for the teenage prospect in the first team. Klopp hardly got any starts under coach Hubert New, who perhaps predictably disliked the fact that the 20-year-old was working late shifts at the bar in Frankfurt's nightlife district, Schwachenhausen, a supplement to supplement his Jaeger income. So, I mean, you're not allowed to fully, I imagine, get trashed if you're the bartender, but staying up late.
It still fucks with the schedule.
It messes with the schedule, man, but, you gotta pay rent, you got bills, you're going to school. This is the way to make it, and you aren't really you can't pay all the bills on the footballing wage just yet. His substitute appearances for amateur didn't leave the best of impressions either. Klopp's most noticeable moment in the Baron season, Mueller says, came in a game against SG Holst. Oh, you want to help me out? It's at the bottom of 124. SG.
SG Holst.
SG Holst. I know I'm saying that. I apologize to any German person listening to me read. The match had tied 1-1 or 0-0 with only a couple of minutes to go. Klopp was brought on. We were awarded a free kick. One of our players stepped up and smashed it into the corner. We started celebrating wildly, but the referee blew his whistle and chalked it off. Klopp had pushed over 2 opponents in the wall. The team were not best pleased. So your most notable moment in your next starting, of being at Frankfurt, maybe not on the first team, but you got to work your way up through the ranks, is you pushed over some people and ruined the winner. Not fun. Mueller is convinced that those days, or rather nights, prepared Klopp for... I'm sorry. I skipped over something. Football aside, the Black Forest lad had a very good time in the big city. Mueller had been instructed by Norbert Newell, the general manager of the Oberliga Hessen side, to look after Klopp and teammate Armin Bohn, who were both new in town and living in student digs. He took his task very seriously. We went out in the Sachsenhausen at night, drinking cider. Never the night before games. We were too professional for that. But after, and during the week sometimes, we were rivals, but we bonded due to similar love for life and a sense of humor. We rocked the city. We went everywhere. They had some nice shining lights. Luckily, there were no camera phones then. Nobody caught us out. And Mueller is convinced that those days, or rather nights, prepared Klopp for dealing with the young players as a manager later on. He knows exactly what young men are like at that age. You're still a child, really. You go off the rails sometimes. You have to. You can relate. He can relate to that because he was the same. So even in the starting and stopping, he's learning how to become who he will later, which is just cool to see those little details.
Yeah, it's not stuff you get to hear about when you see him coach today or just recently. Just, I don't know. It's always interesting to see or hear about how a manager or a coach used to be and just how their minds are molded by what they had dealt with and what things they had to deal with. I mean, frankly, it just sounded like Klopp was having a good time, which is great. Mm-hmm. He was playing, not having some of the best games, but he was still playing and still studying just like he wanted to. So it's cool because he's only being himself.
Right.
Even if he's pushing over people on the wall in a free kick, it's just like he would be the one doing that.
Right, dude. The more you read about him, the more you're not surprised that happened.
Yeah, he's not gonna turn himself down just so that it's a proper free kick or whatever. He's gonna be the one that is carrying a lot and start to push people over.
And Klopp gets his first taste of coaching. So he's coaching the U11s for, I'm guessing, is €200 based on how they compared it before.
Yeah.
And a winter coat. But he also got Eintracht season ticket, which you would sell me.
Yeah.
You would sell me on that.
I would be set.
Give me a season ticket to watch in the games. I'm in. But even while he's coaching the U11s, he had his first decision to make to try to keep all the guys together because the club wanted to change them for younger kids. And Klopp's already battling the higher-ups, and he won that battle to keep them together, but eventually found he had too much on his plate to keep instructing the youngsters. So he's already, I'm fighting for the U11s, man. I've got to keep them all together. We got to keep these guys together.
Yeah. Makes me think about maybe some things I should have done to keep some teams together. But, yeah, I don't know. Different people.
Here's another insight into who Klopp is. He's getting married here. And he wore bleached out jeans, a striped blazer, and an untucked striped shirt. And Christian Heidel had arranged for singer Thomas Nagier and his band to perform I'm Schatten des Doms in the shadow of the cathedral, a Mainz anthem that had become part of the stadium's DJ's repertoire on direct orders of the FSV coach. I underline that because it speaks to who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And wearing the untraditional attire, playing
it's a very formal
the
thing.
Team's anthem at the wedding. And though it did not happen, it was actually in the itinerary at my wedding to play You'll Never Walk Alone when we left. But it just became, after we spent an hour like talking to everybody, and we were just at a point, like it left our heads. We were just trying to get out of there, go on the honeymoon. But it was talked about. And I wanted to hear that as I left the building. So I relate to that, being all about it. And the fact that it was like, it had the okay from the missus too.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously, well, We don't know if she was on board in Klopp's situation because it doesn't say. But I
don't think he would have given her a choice.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm sure she knew exactly what she was getting herself into because Jürgen isn't a guy that hides who he is. So
no.
There's probably no surprises at the very least. Unless he's involved in any kind of football game, then all coolness goes out the window. On a family holiday in Turkey a couple years ago, Mueller was playing in a five-a-side team with Klopp's sons, Mark and Dennis. Klopp himself was injured but coached the team with real passion, giving detailed instructions from the sidelines. I had to go off because it was extremely hot and I'm quite old, Mueller recalls. I think we were narrowly in the lead. Kloppo, in his inimitable style, came up to me and slapped me softly across the face. You will score one more goal. You'll score one more, he told me. I went back on and did indeed score one more. He's got this doggedness that when it comes to winning football games, even when it's just for fun on the beach somewhere, he cannot help himself. And a lot of this chapter is going to continue just giving little snippets on just Klopp's personality. It really dives into that. Obviously, starting and stopping in his football career, but also you're just seeing who he is going through all this and remaining that person through all the starts and all the stops. So a man, whether he knew it or not, had great patience for the process. So back to his Frankfurt career. Hubert knew designated successor as amateur coach Jürgen Sparsweiser, the famous goalscorer in East Germany's 1-0 win over World Cup winners West Germany in 1974, told Klopp in the spring of 1988 that he didn't feature in his plans for the subsequent season. Jürgen was basically pushed out, says Mueller. I'm sure Jürgen knows how it feels to be like, hey, you're not part of the system. It's not going to work. And now it's happening to him before he ever had to do it to anybody else.
Yeah.
Dietrich Weiss still felt the young Swabian had potential, however. Weiss was by now coaching El Hilal in Cairo, Egypt. I don't know if I said the team right. And had set up the first regional training center for talented youngsters in the Frankfurt area. 10 years before the German FA would accept his blueprint for youth development and roll out the Stützpunkte all across the nation. I didn't know Klopp was talking to the guy who was going to pretty much set it up for the entire nation and how the youth development system was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, judging from that's like a little snippet, but like, who knows how much great or little like influence Jürgen Klopp actually had, like talking to him about it. I'm sure he had some pretty good ideas. Right.
I'm mainly just pointing out like the people that he's in contact with that are the
right.
kinds of people influencing
Before
him.
This book, I was like, yeah, right. I would never.
He's got Wolfgang Frank influencing him. Now there's this guy who is setting up how we develop the youth, and that was always something Klopp was good at doing with the young. He was getting a younger squad, and as we read in Dortmund, his center back pairing was like 19 and 20 or what, it was around those age groups, going with them instead of the veterans. So learning how to develop youth was something that he started being able to do himself. So in the 16th of April in 1988, on the ground of FC Homburg, Seinlingen bought the striker from Eintracht for €4,000. He's on the move again. And he was paid around €600 per month in cash, but only during the season. Little more than pocket money. So Klopp is on the move again.
Starts and stops.
He hadn't made the sort of progress as a player he had hoped for. He probably found it hard concentrating on football in those days, what with his sports science studies in Frankfurt and a heavily pregnant girlfriend. His son Marek was born December of 1988, and his move was just in April of that same year. The year wasn't without some sweet moments, however. Away to his former team Eintracht Amateur, Klopp scored 4 goals in a 6-0 win. So like him to go to an old club and just bring the noise. It was horrible for us and great for him, says Mueller. He sent a nice message to Sparsweiser that day. Look at what you're missing.
So funny guy.
So this seems like a good start. Now the goals are starting to flow just a little bit. And against a team that got rid of you too, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's I don't know. He probably has some emotion to get out too, just right. With like the relationship he had with them, and I don't know.
I made it a point to beat a certain second Mannheim Township team on my last rec season.
Right.
That was because of the coach I was up against. I'm like, I will not lose this game. I will not.
Right.
Lose.
There's a little bit of extra something. And the Klopp probably had that to give.
Mm-hmm.
The coach, Günther Dutine.
Man, if you're struggling.
Well, I mean, Dutine doesn't sound super German.
Right.
But he was in charge of the team as a caretaker that day for the Rot-Weiß Frankfurt.
For the day.
Yeah. And this coach, Günther, had said, I've told my grandchildren that I managed the great Jürgen Klopp for 1 game. He wasn't a rocket, to be honest, but always involved and present for every training session. Yeah. Oh, no, wait, he was, Günther was the coach for Zindlingen.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, not Frankfurt.
Right. We're on to a new club.
Yeah.
But he hasn't fully arrived just yet. These are lower down the pecking order, or not on the first teams of certain clubs.
Yeah. I feel like each coach Klopp has come in contact with just has like a slightly different opinion of who he is, but I think that also just depends on who the coach is.
As a player, Klopp was ambitious, and he knew how to look after himself on the pitch. He was no snowflake, Schubert reports. He also had no qualms telling his older teammates how they could improve technically. After the game, he would think about the team's performance. I'd say there were small hints that he could read the game. Klopp's aerial prowess saw Berndroth devise a set play routine. It came off at a crucial moment in Sindlinger's season. They were playing FC Erbach in the one-game relegation playoff at a neutral ground, and they were tied 2-2 with 20 minutes to go when Walter Braun floated in a corner towards the near post. Schubert headed the ball on towards the second post, where Klopp rose to power it into the net. Zindlingen won 4-2. So
he's influencing.
He's influencing, and in the greatest way possible, in the sense that you're not getting on the best with the coach, because before this game he's getting called out at practice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his last time he was known for something was ruining a winner. So not only does he not ruin the winner, he gets a winner, and when something's designed just for your skill set. This is kind of how Weghorst makes a living for Netherlands. Hey, we're losing. Come on the pitch. Do something with your 6'5" frame or however tall he is.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes an impact when they need him. It keeps you around. It keeps you relevant. You have a use. And it's harder to take those opportunities when they're very far and few in between. But
yeah,
that just goes to speak towards a guy like Weghorst or like Klopp, when you're called upon in those, how many times you get the touch of the ball if it's just at the last 10 minutes of a game, but you make those touches count. And that's
super subs.
Imagine if you don't take that opportunity when it comes, that you might not ever get the next one.
Right.
So he's keeping his career alive. I'm jumping to 131 unless you have had some notes you want to go off on.
No, I did not. You had much more underlined than I did.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. So I wrote down in my notes here that this is the World Cup effect. Kind of like a James Rodriguez thing, where you watch a couple games. This is an instant of one game, but you make decisions off these things instead of a whole body of work. So, Stepanovic went to see a Zindligan game to check out that tip-off, which is obviously about Klopp. You got to go see this guy. The right winger turned out to be Jürgen Klopp. In that match, he played like a god. The 68-year-old says he went past his man on the flank 1,000 times and put in great crosses. I would have never guessed from watching him that he had technical deficiencies. I like players who were fast and wanted to have very attacking players on the flanks. RW Frankfurt paid a transfer fee of 4,000 euros to Zindligan. Klopp was perhaps himself surprised to get a contract. So it's like that's not a good sign. You're aware that like, oh, I'm just, I had a super sub moment.
Buying away the competition.
You had one great game and then all of a sudden you're getting bought. Preseason brought disillusion for both men. Klopp clearly wasn't the player Stepanovic thought he'd bought. After 3-4 league games, I sent him to the second team. After you're like, this guy's a god, he dribbles through everybody. Sometimes you just have a night, and maybe business decisions shouldn't be made on one.
That's why you scout a player multiple times.
Right, but that's what I meant by the World Cup effect. Players get bought because the occasion, playing for your country, you show out. I see what you mean now. And then you buy them, and they have a whole season of work to put together, but they're not that player.
Mm-hmm. It also just depends on like who, like those players are playing with their nation's team, and those players on that team are going to be different from ones that you have on your team. So it's just it's not. Sometimes it might not be the same because of the structure of the team. Exactly.
I got into trouble with people at the club. They wondered why I had got him in the first place and called him a failure. He had sat on the bench in the second team. He simply didn't have enough to play in the starting 11. I thought, is it possible that I got it so wrong? Steppy told me that I was his wife and daughter's favorite player, but he could not play me. Regardless, Klopp said in the talk with the
Ronachrichten
in 2014, I think I could have sat in my jeans on the bench for half a year. He would not have noticed at all.
How demoralizing.
Right.
I mean, to have the mentality to deal with that, though, is just, that's difficult on its own. And I think Klopp definitely to deal with that, he has to also understand how the coaching world works. So I think, maybe he was able to deal with it a bit better.
Right.
I mean, he did get paid. So it's like, he is getting money, or he had got money. So it's just, he's just kind of doing what he's being told at this point. It's just not really that much playing.
And here goes to Klopp's patience, and also how he talked as a coach that he's willing to give these chances as long as you're willing to continue to give everything. Like, if you're on board, your mistakes aren't going to be what sends you away. And credit to Steppy here. The RW coach resolved to give the forward another chance after the winter break. He brought him back into the fold with the first team and changed his role to a 9. As a target man, Klopp suddenly started scoring goals in industrial quantities. 3, 6, 10. He hit the net in every training session, In the air, nobody got near him. His headers were sensational. He got 14 in the second half of the season for us to take us to the Hessenliga?
Yes.
To the Hessenliga title in 1989-90 season. His goals won us the championship. Boom. Just a second half of the season, all of a sudden you're contributing.
Positional change.
You're contributing to silverware.
Yeah. I have a side note about that too. And this is from like when I first read this book. It just goes to show that each player has a right or natural position on the team. And I do really think each player can fit into just like they're just able to do like if they've been playing like a year or so, like there's a position for them. Like they'll know almost like it's almost like their personality and their skill fit into there's a correct spot for that person or that player. And in this example, Jürgen Klopp was the 9. And it's just cool how it just clicks too. Like sometimes you won't have to tell them to do too much. You just have to let them just figure it out, maybe like the first training session, and it just kind of just comes. And it's so cool when I get to see that happen as a coach too, especially if I'm coaching 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
You just switch one player around and they're just feeling it. They're just like, this is exactly where, they should be because they're always looking to collect the ball here. They're always looking to run there. And it's just cool because like just the previous paragraph, Klopp was just sitting on the bench and you start to feel sorry for the guy. And now he's just flaring, man.
I need to find a team that's going to let me play target man for more than a 10-minute shift and then never again. Hey, look, we're collecting I don't always score, but like we play together and I'm connecting the team together, and then I really identify with how Klopp plays to my game. It's not technically amazing.
We got to get your headers on par.
But I didn't grow up with a dad who was teaching me to head the ball for my whole childhood.
That's true.
You mix that in there, man, and then I'm Klopp, man. I got a brain that knows what to do and a body that doesn't know what to do, which we'll get into that as well. When we celebrate winning the division, I saw Jürgen sitting in the dressing room, smoking a cigarette. I was a smoker myself and had to laugh. I said to him, if I had known you smoked, I would have played you more often. That day, he told us that he was off to Mainz. We were disappointed, but for him, it was a logical step. Age 23, Jürgen Klopp had become a real professional at last. It's starting to finally look up.
Yeah.
But it's another stop and another start, though.
Yeah. I think the title of the chapter is very on point with how this is going, or how it went, I should say. Just the fact that it had stopped for him and he was sitting on the bench, and then all of a sudden he changes, he gets a position change, and he starts scoring goals that matters. And like that one sentence said, like his goals won us the championship. And that's crazy to think about because like, he was just doing nothing. Yeah. And then now he's just made a contribution that they, can't even like be able to take back. They were like, oh, well, yeah, it was, we had him this whole time.
But being at Mainz now, this is why I had a lot underlined that we're going to see the inner workings of a specific club behind the scenes and continue to see Klopp live in that kind of environment.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Jürgen Klopp, by his own admission, was not a short-trousered magician. He described himself as an aggressive arsehole on the pitch, as a mentality and fighting machine, extremely good in the air and very fast. But technically, he conceded he wasn't good enough. I realized my own limits before others did. To sum it up in my head, I was Bundesliga, and my feet were Landesliga, the 4th division. The result was Bundesliga 2. I quickly accepted it. To be upset would have been a waste of time. He was far too thrilled to dwell on his deficiencies. I wouldn't believe that I was a professional footballer, he said. I would have paid for being allowed to play football at the time, which is the right attitude to have. You just want to play.
Yeah, I think that was... He had the right headspace to go into, what he thought he didn't even, deserve to be in, I guess, is pretty much what he said. Yeah, it's funny.
And people know, they see what he sees. His is an accurate description of his own play. At Christian Heidel's 20th anniversary party at Mainz sporting director in 2012, Klopp recalled the time Heidel saw a Hamburg player miscontrol the ball horribly in a game and exclaimed, "Look, they also have a Kloppo."
Oh.
Yeah. But, he knows himself, and you can also get better when you know your own ability.
Yes.
So you're not... It's one thing in practice to try to be brave and to learn, but when you're in the game, you go, my success rate at this move or this pass is 1 out of 10. I'm going to do that now. Or I know I can do the similar thing, the simpler 9 out of 10 times. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to lose the ball. I'm going to do the things I know how to do well.
Yeah. That's just trusting yourself and what you know how to do, yeah.
But he was bought as a forward. Starting out as a center forward, Klopp scored a respectable 10 goals in his first season at the Braunschweig 1990-91 season, and notched up another 8 by February in his second campaign, which included his most glorious moment as a professional, a 4-goal outing away at RW Erfurt. Mainz won 5-0. This was his shining hour, says Martin Quast, who reported on the match for the local paper. Kloppo mounted the fence to celebrate with the 24 Mainz supporters who had made the trip. The photo I took has been printed hundreds of times since. Kloppo, ×4, in a white shirt with a big 4 on the back. Fantastic. Soon after the feat, the lanky but mobile forward was contacted by a veritable Bundesliga giant, Hamburg SV. They had the hots for him, says Schaefer, but they couldn't get him for whatever reason. Years later, they missed out on appointing him as their coach too. One club, 2 dramatic mistakes. Klopp was understandably desperate for the switch, trading the rough second division slog for a much more financially rewarding shot at the big time. But according to Mainz president Harald Strunz, FSV coach Robert Jung vetoed the move. He threatened to resign if the club let his first choice attacker go. So Klopp being vetoed a move, he's being fought for by a coach going, no, this is my player. The same thing that he would do.
You can't do this to me.
is stopping him from leaving. But he was definitely frustrated, but he accepted it though. Because, hey, I'm going to get a move to the big time, Bundesliga 1. Even if in my mind I'm a Bundesliga 2 guy, I'm getting the offer, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, this matches up with something he says in the next chapter.
Okay. Year after year, the only aim was to somehow stay up, says Hummels, who coached the team for 6-month spell, 1994-95, after a couple years as an assistant manager. Come April and May, the bosses would go and light a candle in church praying for salvation. This is the attitude at Mainz. Oh, I'm going to throw this in because it's not going well. It's kind of a stop right now because the goals dried up and Klopp was moved back into the defense.
Are you able to relate to that?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
But you play really well in defense, though.
I know. That's why I don't fight to get thrown up. But it's just like I feel so much better when I'm helping us score.
Yeah.
Whether it's midfield, playing right wing,
dude, we gotta have some fun on Tuesday, man. With our game, our last game.
Dan's gonna be there. I'm gonna play right back, and I'm telling you, I'm going to run my ass off, trying to just get.
No, you just gotta. okay, so what's going to happen? We're going to find 3 at the back to play defense, and then I'm going to play the center mid, and you're going to be ahead of me. We just got to go out there like that.
Well, yeah, let's see who shows up. That's a good first start.
True. Okay.
If it can work with the personnel, then I'm all in. It wasn't until 1998 that I keep saying S first. FSV had their first player, Michael Mueller, on 5,000 euros per month, not per week. Klopp's salary was significantly smaller, in the low thousands, as was Schaefer's. In 1988, our first Bundesliga 2 season, we had 3 basic tiers, he says. €750 a month for the blind, $1,250 a month for the one-eyed, and $1,750 for those who could see. I was with the one-eyed. Harald Strutz, the president, said to me, Guido, it'll be great because you'll get 2,000 DM for every win as a bonus on top. The problem was we never won.
What a way to categorize the payments.
Or it would have been €1,000 for a win. Nice bonus, but you never win.
Right. Nothing to look forward to.
Klopp jokingly said to his wife Ola that Heidel didn't warrant a present for his 20th anniversary in charge at Mainz. I already played for free for him for 10 years. Signing his player contracts at Heidel's BMW car dealership, the de facto club offices at the time.
Yep.
So like the guy who's in the ownership owns car dealerships, and that's where the offices are. He brought his modest wages into sharp focus early on. With the money he paid me, I could never afford the cars he was selling. Klopp laughed later. Which is funny because we joke about that at work going, well, if we didn't get discounts here, we wouldn't even be able to afford to live in the places that we're taking care of. The club's only employee, one employee here, an administrator, was a part-timer, showing up every other day to sort through the mail in a container. Mainz Stadium announcer Klaus Hafner worked for free as the club's CEO. He sold tickets to the games at weekends, and another volunteer provided the stadium catering. Homemade butter sandwiches. What is that? Is that just butter?
It's just bread and butter.
That's crazy.
Yep. It's a thing.
Quast remembers Hafner. Is that still a thing in Germany? Like, they like that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just a cultural thing.
Okay, because I'm like, I get butter bread on the side with like some spaghetti and put a little maybe garlic on.
No, it's just like it's like your poor man's meal. Just like, okay. All right, like
PB&J here, but
yeah,
just a butter
exactly.
Bread.
Yeah,
okay, that makes sense. Quast remembers Hafner stalking fans in the city center with a collection box at Christmas time, asking for funds to pay for tracksuits for the U17s. Their old set was worn out. So, I mean, like I said, I got a lot underlined here, and it's just example after example of like craziness of this club. You don't win. You don't get the winning bonus because you don't win. The offices are at a car dealership. Players are signing the player contracts for other players, and there's one administrator working there. The CEO works for free. He's the announcer, too.
1988, people.
Right. I mean, it's not that long ago.
No, and the amount of change that has happened is even more crazy and impressive.
Right.
Like, you have a little bit of success, and you know it helps out your community, your team, like just. And
it's not a spoiler. Like Mainz is in the Bundesliga now.
Right. Yeah. And this is the second.
And Mario Götze was playing there.
At Mainz?
Oh no, he's at Frankfurt, right?
He was at Dortmund.
No. But I mean, like recently, real recently.
Oh, right now, yeah, he's at Frankfurt.
Yeah. I'm sorry, not Mainz. That would have been. It would have fit perfectly because he's a Klopp player.
Yeah.
But still, playing at a club that his old boss played at. The only club merchandising they sold in 1995 were towels, Hummel said. I think they sold 4. I still have mine. If anyone had said to me Mainz would be in the Bundesliga in 5, 7, or 8 years' time, I would have bet everything I had against that. I even would have taken out a loan to bet more. It was simply unforeseeable. Like, this is like the coach, man. Like, nobody. We're just.
That killed me when I read that the first time. And I'm just like, this guy is not even joking.
Right.
He is serious, but wants to be funny.
This club is something special, I'm telling you. Mine's reserve team, the U21s, who Heidel had agreed to look after, so now you got like ownership just like, yeah, I guess I got to coach a little bit. Mm-hmm. We're the worst in all of German professional football, playing in Kreisklasse, C? Kreisklasse.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're on 137?
136. Right after he's talking about, I'm betting all the money on Mainz not to make it to the Bundesliga.
Kreisklasse, it's, C, yeah.
Kreisklasse. At the lowest level of the organized game. They didn't even have a complete set of shirts and came up against teams who couldn't actually play football.
The reserve team, yeah.
Training for the first team, who were split up into VW minivans, was only possible if the groundsman of the publicly owned playing field agreed. The changing room inside the stadium was a mold-ridden wetland biotope. You were afraid to hang your towel up in there. There was one rusty big bathtub in there with room for 4 or 5 players, and if you spent too much time in there, you contracted all sorts of diseases. To never get relegated at that club with those players really was a tremendous achievement. And that's why I'm going, this club is amazing.
Yeah, that's why the next chapter is great.
And it just really sums up. This is why the ownership and they're going to church, lighting the candle, going, please let us not get relegated. This is all we could ask for. This is all we want. And this is crazy because I saw that there was some bad things, like, this is why Wolfgang Frank might have been asking for too much all at once, but it needed to be demanded to head in that direction, though.
To put the idea out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, he turned them into a team that can win games. I'm scared the crap out of me. I was like, what's happening? I'm about to die. Stuff happening in the room, people, has nothing to do with the book. I didn't know what was happening. My life flashed before my eyes. Attacking midfielder Ansgar Brinkman, nicknamed the White Brazilian, for example, had a well-deserved reputation for partying. Kind of reminds me of other Brazilian, Ronaldinho, maybe. Playing for Osnabrück, he had once been stopped for driving under the influence in his Porsche Boxster, but managed to break out of the police car and run away on foot before they had checked his levels. He was let off. It's like,
okay.
What kind of time is this? These are the kinds of players.
The 80s, dog.
This is the kind of players that you have, too, playing for Mainz.
They probably didn't even know who he was.
Heidel and Strutz put me up with Kloppo in hotels for away games for him to keep an eye on me. He always had his head in a book, and I always watched a lot of television. He was like, turn that thing off. We have a game tomorrow. Kloppo, I replied, there's a stop sign for you at the halfway line tomorrow. Just give me the ball. Just talking smack to Klopp. Just don't go past the half. You suck. I'll do the rest because you can't play. He'd chuck a pillow or other things at me. One night, I threw the TV out of the window from the 8th floor. He woke up with a bang. Where's the TV, Ansgar? I threw it out the window. Why? The film had a shit ending. This is just crazy. Like, I even skipped the other part I was going to say. Mainz perma-desperation chewed up coaches. In Klopp's 11 years as a Mainz player, he was managed by 14 different men. The instability at the top bred certain lawlessness in the dressing room. It was a horde of pretty wild players, says Hummels. The police had to be called in a couple of times. So the police are getting called on all the players. You got other players who are driving drunk and breaking free from the cops. Do whatever it takes for the club, though, right? If I'm getting arrested, I can't play. Schaefer, still rocking a marvelous peroxide mane at 52, was a free spirit, too. He'd sometimes come late to training or miss it altogether. I had to pay a lot of fines, thanks to Kloppo, who was on the players' council, getting a little bit of that leadership, that he brings. The coaches would usually let the council decide on the size of the fees, and Kloppo showed no mercy. Thank you, Kloppo. I once paid 250 euros. I hadn't overslept or been to a pub. I was late because my cat had gone missing. Obviously, nobody believed me. Kloppo laughed. Your cat? Pull the other one. Another 250 it is for you. 3 days later, we lost a game at Chemnitz.
Yeah, Chemnitz, yeah.
Herman Hummel said that was the first time a second division team had lost because of a cat. Another time, they took 500 euros off me for being out too long during training camps. Another player. He doesn't show up. He's getting fined. The other player's getting arrested. The cops are getting called. Klopp's leading. He's a leader in the locker room, though, of all these hooligans, man.
He's holding them responsible, and
right,
nobody else is doing it.
So when he finally got some people who were in love with the game, man, it probably was just so easy. Yeah. He's like, oh, I kept these guys in check. Oh, you want to be here? Excellent. In his early 20s, Klopp was a saint by comparison. A good-natured, pretty quiet, mustachioed lad, a husband and a young father who prayed underneath a towel before matches. On his way home from games, he and the others would gather around the flamboyant Schaefer in the last row of the bus and listen to tales of his rowdy pub crawls and women. Schaefer, he was the first one to sit there. He laughed as soon as I said the first sentence, and he was the last one to stop laughing. He caught fire easily. He always liked to listen. He wasn't a loudmouth then. He once told me that he picked up some of the quick wit and charm from all those rides in the last row of the bus. So maybe some of that charisma he's gaining from all of these crazy characters as well.
Yeah. Lots of good characters.
Klopp, Schaefer recalls, didn't eat like a top athlete. Grilled sausage and chips were his thing. He smoked the odd cigarette underneath the exterior fan in the hotel bathroom. But Brinkman's recollection of Klopp's hotel rooms being so full of smoke that you need to hang up a disco globe to see anything were in all likelihood a little embellished. Both agree that Klopp very rarely drank any alcohol. He always went straight home to Frankfurt after training. He didn't have a chance to paint the town red with us. On a few occasions, he did have a drink. On team night during training camp, it didn't much agree with him. He would have 2 long drinks and then throw up. He wasn't capable of going the distance at all. It's another insight about Klopp. I see a crazy German dude. I see a guy who could go out and drink with the lads. It's just not what I would expect. It's nothing wrong with it, though, but just these little insights I just find interesting.
It's not your typical cliche. Cliches are just kind of very general sometimes.
But the degenerate does come out. During the game, it was the opposite. Klopp's passion and commitment took him far in the rough environment of Bundesliga 2, possibly too far at times. No opponent had ever insulted me as much as he did. My teammate, says Brinkman. That's a fact. I played right in front of him. He constantly screamed at me, Angsgar, you idiot, get back into the formation. Or, if you don't come back right now, I'll do you, you donkey. Get a move on. I was more afraid of him than I was of my opponent. He was always the first pick in the training games because nobody wanted to play against him. When his team was down, he started bending the coach's ear until he forgot that the game should have already been over. Every one of those games lasted until Kloppo had won. You always wanted to be on his side. He wouldn't and couldn't lose. This is why I have everything underlined. I'm kind of just reading the book right now.
Yeah.
But these are the things, like,
it's hard to
do they make people like this anymore? I don't know. This is a situation of how Germany was at the time and how he was raised. It's that old school kind of being raised. And I don't know. I just find his character in these stories just insane.
Yeah. Do you want me to read a little bit, take turns?
Yeah, dude. I have. You can just keep reading from there. Honestly. Klopp's desire to win 139.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that transitions into what I have. Klopp's desire to win, Schaefer concurs, was literally frightening. It got uncomfortable at times. He was very impulsive, hysterical, you might say. Choleric. At one game in Saarbrücken, he came right up to me and screamed in my face for half a minute. I had conceded a corner, I think. 1 minute later, it was forgotten again. He was your mate again. He's not always that smiling and hugging guy. He can be wild, and he can be unfair. But he doesn't bear a grudge, which is just as well. That's just like... Personalities like Jürgen Klopp's really like throw me for a loop because like I'm very empathetic. So like if somebody is like yelling at me, I always think they're gonna have a grudge with me later. So it's good to know this stuff about somebody, especially if you're gonna be playing with them and getting paid and doing a job with them. So it's just funny because like this that sums up Klopp very much. So,
I have it keep going. It's another guy who plays in front of him.
Yeah, to continue, Jürgen Kramny, another Mainz alumni who had the pleasure or misfortune of playing directly in front of the highly strung right back. He has similar tales to tell. I was a good footballer, and it wasn't easy for me to have Klopp behind me. He was loud. If I didn't help out enough, he moaned. Boy, he could moan. He used to lose it on the pitch. We would, shall we say, exchange frank views. I got in the odd bit of a repartee? Repartee? I don't know this word. Things like, if you played better passes, I wouldn't have to run so much. But using different language, he laughs. But we could both handle it. By and large, it worked well for the two of us. Striker Sven Demant, too, had a good working relationship with Klopp, aided by a bit of distance. Luckily, he was far away from me back in the defense. I couldn't hear him scream that much. Kramny remembers one training ground incident that left Klopp a little angry, however. He sat on a movable small goal, and I stood before him over a ball. I pretended to take a shot. He jumped up, the goal toppled over, and he fell badly on his lower back. He got up and chased me around the pitch until he had to give up because the pain was too bad. He might still feel it today. Oh man, yeah, this meets up exactly with what I have.
Okay.
In Bundesliga 2 or 2, a league made of mud, debt, and fears.
I love
everybody
that.
hurt.
Oh my gosh. Mud,
Most
debt,
of the
fears.
time. Yeah. Mainz, like the majority of clubs, fought a never-ending battle for survival and aggression on the pitch and in the stands was considered a prerequisite. In a typical raucous affair at Waldhof Mannheim's Karlbenstadion in April 1994, Klopp
That's when I was born.
Klopp made the mistake of putting his head through the gaps in the terrace fence to fling insults back at some Mannheim supporters.
That's crazy. That's what's happening. I'm being born April 19th in that month,
fights.
and that's when Klopp's fighting people.
He was smacked in the face, says Schaefer. That was the last time he ever put his head through any stadium fence.
This guy's a maniac, dude.
He is.
But even more than I ever thought.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he has had a whole history of it already.
The most lovable maniac because it comes out when he's playing. And that's when like that side of me would come out before I could keep my more emotions in check. Like
Yeah.
All those Red Rose years, like early on, like out of high school, it was not healthy. It was not healthy emotionally, dude. And it came out at Red Rose and just being toxic, and you didn't want to play in front of me. Like it's the same.
Yeah, the toxicity.
He definitely had more of a passion behind it than me. But my bad side came out during the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, when the tough gets going, it's hard to keep yourself in check. And, when you're playing a professional game and things are getting rowdy and you hear what the fans are saying to you, it would be hard to ignore. I would probably want to turn around and say something. And I'm a quiet type.
Yeah.
To continue, this is the part I had underlined.
Yeah, this is good.
Klopp's essential problem was that of the division on the whole. He wanted to play better football, but he couldn't. Schaefer. He often said that he had the right idea of where the pass or the cross should go, but sadly not the means. He knew how things worked, but his body was not able to make it happen, says Quast. He once told me that he felt like a prisoner.
Dude, I felt just like that when we played with that Angelo and Gino. I forget the guy's first name. I only play with him like the one time. I feel bad. But he's the son of the Wales international coach.
Yeah, Corey,
yeah. And he was playing with us at Red Rose. And that I think I told you about this. That maybe not this side of it. But like he was a great player. You can tell like he had the intelligence and everything. And I'm bringing down the ball. I was playing like more of a left forward, and I was in their final third, and I'm bringing the ball down. My body's facing the wall. I'm maybe like 2 feet from the wall, so I'm not facing goal. So I'm on the sideline more, and he's coming down the middle. And the ball's in front of me, and he's asking where he's making the run. So the ball, when he's asking for it, it needs to be played.
Right.
So the ball's in front of me. My back's to him, and he wants
the ball to be played to him. Flicked
perfectly to him on the bounce, and I'm just like,
"That's not me, man.
I can't get you the ball." And now I took the time to think if I could, and went through all the my brain just couldn't come up with an answer, and then I wasn't able to focus on what I could do properly, which was just bring it down, either take a touch down the line or take a touch back and recycle it because we're in the final third, have a little patience. Do something that I know I can effectively do. And then I just looked, I was just fumbling around. Oh my gosh, dude. I was a prisoner, man. I was a prisoner. And it's not like, Klopp's putting in the time. So I know he probably felt way more like a prisoner than I'm describing. Because it's not like I've been living my life to be a professional footballer, putting in the time that would get the results that you want. So he's almost reached a ceiling probably for himself. I never got to that point, but it's just a specific example that I could relate to. That my mind knew, he's on. I see him. I saw him. He called for it. Just couldn't get it to him, man.
Yeah.
But he was doing those flicks all game.
Right.
If I had made the run and he was in my position, he would have got me the ball.
Yep.
So that's how it can work.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, when you can't do exactly what needs to be done, you feel like a prisoner to your own limitations, and especially when your mind is thinking faster than what your body can do, which he's mentioned before in this book. Just, I get it. Especially when I had played a few semi-professional games, when you realize you can't do exactly what the coach wants all the time, and you feel like it's never good enough, you start to feel like a prisoner a little bit. And especially when the coach doesn't really make the effort to connect with you about what went wrong here and what we can do to work on it, and just being a little bit more communicative about it. But that's why communication with players is so big.
Right.
You're just not, if you're just barking at them for what you need them to do, it's way more than that.
a little bit down the page, I have the experience he had at Mainz in terms of group dynamics under extreme pressure left a huge mark on him, says Peter Krawitz, Klopp's second assistant coach at Liverpool. Mainz constantly had their asses to the wall, to put it bluntly. The house was on fire all the time. They depended on everybody being prepared to put in everything. He learned an incredible amount about the things that make a football team tick in those years, and about the different characters you'll find in the game. I believe he's taken all the years in the dressing room, reflected on them, and found that many things can be sorted with a bit of common sense. He has a feel for the situation, for saying the right thing at the right moment in the right manner. So,
kind of touches
if
on
you
what
can
I just said.
steer a ship sinking, I mean, this guy's Captain Jack Sparrow. He's just that sinking ship into port.
But we can get there.
We can get there. We're gonna get there. We just gotta keep going. But you give him a ship that doesn't have holes in it, man, and look what he can do.
Yeah, would it be different if like that was his speciality and you gave him a ship without holes? Could he still do it the same?
Mm-hmm. Another thing that helped out Klopp, on to 142, in an interview with Der Tagesspiegel.
Der Tagesspiegel.
Yeah, that's pretty good. In 2012, he admitted that he was not a model student, nor was I. I had a family and had to earn money playing football, but he added, dealing with educators, psychologists, and sociologists, and knowing about methodology has perhaps helped me find solutions as a coach without me realizing. Studying possibly saved me from early failure as a coach.
That paragraph has helped me with just kind of staying up to date on things. Like I always do a little bit of studying on my own to kind of always improve myself as a coach, but as like keep my mind open to like how things work, like especially in those categories of like psychology and sociology, and just how methodology really paints a picture in the sport. And I know how important those things are in that sport of soccer, and just how things work in life. I mean, it's just, there's a way of creating the right cogs for things to work.
Sure.
I think he figures that out really well. Even as not a model student, as he said.
Learning how to study was pivotal to me as well, because if I hadn't gone through those lessons of how not to do a whole bunch of things, that helped me really dive into the year that you left for Germany. And it was just Kyle and I. And like I've said before, that's when I really felt like I came into my own as a coach, and doing the planning sessions, and I was putting in time, like looking up, like what's the best way to learn this, having not learned any of it the traditional way myself.
Yeah.
I was learning things that I thought would be beneficial, and then having the patience to implement them, and studying. Yeah, I had to do studying, and all of a sudden, like, planning sessions started making sense in my head, you know? Like, I just had to keep going. And, you know, Klopp had to do his education as well for football. Klopp's footballing higher education was provided by Mainz coach Wolfgang Frank, as we have gone over. His first spell at the Braunschweig was tantamount to the tactical awakening for Klopp. He suddenly understood the game could be seen in structural terms, as a series of patterns and well-drilled team could impose on the other side. But neither his nor Frank's interest was driven by the abstract concern for artistic expression or aesthetics. Tactics, Professor Frank taught, were a means to an end. I was never interested in reinventing football, Klopp later said. All I wanted was to find ways that made us win more often. There's that competitive side plus the studying side and the passionate side. Like, there's no ego in this. Like, how can we win?
Yeah.
Let's look at everything. If it reinvents football, so be it. If we just play the most basic football and win, I'm sure he would do it. If it looked the ugliest and he would win the Champions League, he would do it.
Yeah. And the way his style of play looked even with some Liverpool games against, I mean, you're playing against top teams in Premier League, and a lot of the goals, they weren't the prettiest. Some of the play wasn't the prettiest, but he found a way for them all to play the way that they could win games, which they were
look at Atletico Madrid for their spell of winning some La Liga titles and back-to-back Champions League final losses, but they were just punching people in the mouth.
Yep.
And I was so sad they lost the 1 year because
they deserved it.
Well, Real Madrid won, and so that's fine. But they went through, I'd have to relook it up, but their road to the final was one of the hardest ones of just beating giants on the way. I think it was we had to go through Barcelona, and then we had to go through Bayern Munich, who were all having good years, and they were just doing their smash mouth way. And then we've beaten Real Madrid before. We got to beat them again in the final, and then just to fall short on some penalties. It was just a shame of how they got there. It was just an awesome run. Having served as Frank's right-hand man on the pitch, Klopp had no tolerance for any of the inferior coaches who populated the FSV bench. Quast recalls an incident when the late Dirk Kuyt was in charge shortly after Frank's second spell had finished in April 2000. Klopp was substituted 3 minutes from the end. Mainz were leading 2-0 against Stuttgarter kickers. Machado, a Brazilian, was supposed to come on, and Kuyt was talking to him on the touchline. Klopp went over, pushed Kuyt, the coach, out of the way, and gave Machado a different pep talk, slapping his back and
gesticulating,
telling him that he was supposed to do on the pitch. Then Klopp went off and kicked a bucket in frustration. I don't know. He's just a whole nother dude, but he's pushing coaches out of the way, coaching the team, going off. He's still mad. It's just, this is life or death. Is just playing this game.
Yeah.
As the reposed defender got older and slower in his game, in your face, strong challenges, good at headers, dangerous in opposition box, as former FSV midfielder Sandro Schwartz puts it, became a testament to the idea that application could trump ability. You can see that in players at the end like Andrea Pirlo. All ability, all brain, no mobility. More naturally talented teams were shown that it was feasible to consistently play at the very limit or even beyond. He made the impossible possible, Schwartz said. Age 19, he had only just made the move up from the youth team and frequently sought out Klopp, then 30, man, I'm 30, for support and advice. Many players did. He was the one guy you'd go to as a player or as the coach. If you had any questions or problems, he says, he was the absolute leader in the dressing room, but also very socially minded. When the teenage midfielder tore his cruciate ligament in 1998, Klopp became even more of a personal role model to him. He had suffered the same injury 2 years earlier, that's at 28, and come back in record time in only 3 months.
Oh my God.
He really helped me through the rehabilitation process, making sure I stayed optimistic. Professionals usually need a minimum of 6 months before playing again after a cruciate ligament tear. Klopp's rush back to the pitch underlined his extraordinary devotion to the team and his profession, but also reflected his precarious financial situation. German football clubs are legally required to pay full salaries for injured players for only the first 6 weeks of their absence, after which national insurance pays out 80% of the monthly wage. For Klopp, 20% less of very little was more than he could afford. As a second division player in the mid-90s, he feared for his existence, says Krawitz. He was on a few thousand DM a month. So that just means maybe a couple or 1,000 euros a month.
Mm-hmm.
He had a small child at home and knew that relegation could mean the end of the club and of him as a footballer. Klopp's will to win went well beyond the sporting competitiveness he had inherited from his father. It came in handy. He wanted to win so badly because he had to. The life he was living depended on it.
It's a very strong paragraph.
Right. That's why I wanted to... That's what I have ended with for my underlined. Just the fact that feared for my existence. Literally my life outside the game, and literally the club could come to an end. My career will come to an end. We have to win.
Yeah, it's a whole different level of playing, and that he and a lot of professionals experience when they have to play to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I played semi-professionally, and we didn't get really paid.
Mm-hmm.
So I never had a chance to really delve into that world. But like I hear about it a lot, especially with some MLS players that they don't, in the lower leagues.
Sure.
You know, they are playing to live, to pay rent. You know, just like Klopp, they might have children and a wife, or like, you know, worse situations even. And it's a whole different vibe when you have to play just to get by, or just to keep going. Like it's I don't know. I'm able to understand what he feels in that paragraph, even though I hadn't really been in that situation myself. But like when you really like the life that you're living, the chance of losing it is pretty scary. So I think he just found a new gear to go to.
Sure.
Under that kind of pressure. And I think he probably had to think about it and mull it over in his head a few days, and just really figure it out in his mind, like what he had to do. And I don't know. He found a pathway, obviously, but
I think when you read the last paragraph and then you go back and hear him shouting to the guys playing in front of them, or being in his mind, a coach is not doing the right thing. So it's like, this is about the survival of the club. Yeah. Like, I'm pushing you out of the way, like, not
because
that's very egotistical. Picture. Yeah, it's egotistical looking, and maybe there is a little bit of it because he's a human. So there is
thinking about the bigger picture.
He's like, he's going to tell this guy to do this, and we're going to lose. I'm going to push him out of the way. Like, all of his antics and anger on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
When you read that, you're like, well, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
The high-strung right back who's playing like it's the end of the world.
Right. In hindsight, it's just like, yeah, that makes sense.
While there's other guys running around partying and getting arrested, and he's trying to keep it all together as like being on the council players.
That vision, man. That vision of the bigger picture was what helped him be a good coach, I think. Yeah.
Football is life, man.
Yeah, like many have said, yeah. What a great chapter. Holy moly.
That's why I got excited when I read that one. I was like, I really like this chapter. And you're like, dude, 10 is the best. So
it is good.
So you're getting me excited for next week for chapter 10.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we might have to split it into 2 episodes just to be efficient.
As we go, the episodes keep increasing, so it's whatever. And I keep going like, oh, maybe next week we'll do 2. Maybe next week is only half a chapter, so we don't know. I don't want to do 5-hour long episodes until if something happens where I'm getting paid to do it, then I can do that.
Yeah, if people have the time for that as well.
Right. But until then, go out and buy Bring the Noise by Raphael Honigstein.
Honigstein.
The Jürgen Klopp story. I'm fully loving this book. It brings out all the passion that I have for the game. It brings the noise. Makes me want to coach again. I'm excited for my wife to start her season so I can go start watching games again. So that'll be fun, and I want to get obsessed with this girls' team and start maybe being a little louder on the sideline and just being that guy.
Just get your foot in, start coaching.
Just start coaching. I joked with her that I'm going to start just shadow coaching the team by like telling her like, hey, this is what you guys need. You guys just got to tell the head coach you got to play with the false nine because I'm seeing that.
I mean, even if you could be an assistant would be cool.
It would be cool. I mean, it would be cool. It would be cool. It would definitely be cool. I just want to get a jacket, man.
A winter coat.
Because
season tickets.
You know where I didn't get a jacket? Lancaster Elite.
I gave you a jacket.
I know.
That's how much I cared.
That's what I mean, though. Like, they didn't give me a jacket, and I appreciated it, and it came in handy, but it was too tight.
I know. I was like, this is gonna be a squeeze, but it's a jacket. It's all I got.
It was better than nothing. It made me feel like a proper coach.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a college, so you should get a jacket or a coat.
Right, but like how Klopp, we started coaching U11s, and I did it for this amount of money and a winter jacket. That's all I need. That's all I just give.
Don't need much.
Give me a hat and a jacket with the insignia on, so I can feel like I'm in it.
Yeah, maybe even some seasonal Philly Union tickets if you're feeling generous.
Do it for the merch. All right, this has been Hoefelhohman FC. Thank you again, Nick, for being an amazing co-host.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure to be able to just talk about this book and read it. It's fun. Like, just going through it with you, who are also passionate about the coach and the sport and just like his story, and fumbling over some German words here and now again, but it's okay. It's just fun.
Yeah, man.
I love talking about it, but yes, thank you guys for listening.
Yes, if you made it this far, you're one of the real ones. Leave a like and subscribe. I'm sure it helps in some way that I'm ignorant to. I know it helps algorithms and whatnot, and if this ever grows into something, it'll be because of those early ones on. I know I was one of those people for other YouTubers, not saying it as
a little bit goes on.
Not saying it as like an ego thing. Like I've seen it. Like I've seen. If you know who Star Wars Theory is, I was following that guy who was just making videos on his phone being a nerd.
Yeah.
Just like in the videos, and now the guy's got 3 million subscribers. I don't know if that's what's in the cards for this, but that's what helps something grow and to get it to continue. So if you like it, that's what gets things to grow and to continue. Because if it doesn't grow, then that's when life can make it go on hiatuses. You know what I mean?
Hiatus. Yeah.
I want to keep doing it. Like, I have the equipment. This is a hobby of mine. I'm not going to stop doing it, but the frequency depends on that kind of thing. But
for sure.
Again, just thank you if you enjoy it. Yep. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.